I am a gamer and proud of it. And I've been so for as far back as I can remember. From learning how to play the PS1 with old cousins and family friends, to running home from the bus stop to play the newest Madden I got on my PSP. All the way to pulling all-nighters in middle school with friends over Xbox Live. Most, if not the majority of my best memories, all include video games. But for me, I didn't grow up playing Pokemon or Smash, Mario Kart. For me, it was all sports video games. And I was lucky enough to grow up in the best era for sports video games, period. Everything from FIFA, Madden, NBA 2K, NFL 2K, NFL Street, Blitz the League. I could rattle these off for hours. Were all in their prime during my childhood. And sports video games were at their peak across every sport. I was a kid and I was absolutely in love with video games. But today, these games are a shell of themselves and nowhere near the heights that they were a decade ago. What were once games designed to evoke the best user experience, innovation, competition, fun, have now become the exact opposite. Not fun.
It's not fun for everyone, Bob.
I mean, consider this list of the best 25 sports games of all time from Complex. Classic after classic, iconic game after iconic game, and not a single game made after 2014. And it's no surprise. Games these days are centered around microtransactions, league passes, and ultimately money over everything. But what happened to the games I loved? What happened to the games that I fell in love with as a kid? Now, if this was one franchise or one series, maybe I could look the other way. But across the board, sports games have all taken a nosedive from the highs of yesteryear. Something happened, and we gotta get to the bottom of it. But when I look back, this didn't happen overnight. It wasn't one decision or one studio that's responsible for the demise of sports video games. After all this time, I'm finally ready to talk about the heartbreak of my life. But to do this story justice, we gotta go back. Okay, not that far back. For me, the year I fell in love with video games was 2002. I was a whopping 5 years old and my love for sports was already budding. The one game that led me to fall in love with sports video games was backyard football. The 2002 humongous sports classic that was all that I could have ever dreamed of in a sports video game. Set with a lovable cast of backyard sports characters and a fun arcade-style gameplay, I'll never forget the joy I felt playing that game on my first ever personal game system. A Game Boy, of course. Nothing like choosing Pablo Sanchez and running up and down those fields all day. And the commentators, and the graphics, and the plays, it was perfect for a kid like me. I would go on to play backyard basketball, backyard baseball, backyard hockey, backyard soccer. I mean, everything they put out, I absolutely loved. And these games weren't overly complex or super flashy or high-powered. They were the humble beginnings of what video games should really all be about. Fun. And the fun kept coming and coming as the years went on. I would grow up, well, I grew up a little bit, and really immerse myself into the world of sports video games. My all-time favorite from this era is also my all-time favorite video game ever, period. ESPN NFL 2K5. NFL 2K5, heralded by many as the undeniable greatest football game of all time. The once underdog football game that took on the big bad EA Sports Studios in the fight for NFL supremacy. "2K5 mastered presentation, gameplay, features, Easter eggs, literally any other facet of a video game you can think of. The game was so good that it led Madden to seek out exclusive rights and has been the only NFL game produced since. The game has carved out a legacy for itself that still stands the test of time more than 20 years later, here today in 2025. And for a really great reason. If you haven't played, there are dozens of videos all across YouTube where you can check out the presentation, gameplay. I mean, there are still facts and features in NFL 2K25 that Madden has never been able to replicate in its own game. There's still an entire YouTube community playing the game to this day. But while 2K5 was amazing, Madden NFL 05 was still great in its own right. Features like the game's franchise mode had an in-game radio show hosted by Tony Bruno. Yes, like a real radio show that would update and change week to week based on how you played in the games. Along with features like training camp, mini games, the introduction of the hit stick, the game was great. And in that same year of 2005, we saw other classics like NFL Street, MVP Baseball 05, NFL Head Coach, NBA Street, FIFA Street. I mean, it was a sports gamer's paradise. If only we knew what lied ahead. Over the next 7 years, oh, the places we would go. As I became a regular for a lot of the more common sports video games, routinely picking up Madden, NCAA football, NBA 2K, those games continued to innovate and create some of the most innovative features of all time. I remember hours I poured into my road to glory in NCAA, my career, my player on NBA 2K, I mean, superstar mode in NFL Madden with the haircuts and the tattoos. I mean, I did it all. And I would spend hours and hours and hours on these games. But as I started getting more invested into many of the other sports games of the time, I found myself loving all types of sports. I dove into a game I never knew much about called FIFA and learned a ton about worldwide football. They had this unique mode called Ultimate Team, which was interesting. You would play games to earn coins, and then you could assemble your own team to compete against others online. And at the time, I didn't think much of it. It seemed like a unique experiment, but it didn't seem like a big deal, but I wondered what would come of it. Anywho, I ended up playing other games like Top Spin 4, even though I'd never played tennis in my life, and completed the Grand Slam with players like Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. I checked out games like Tiger Woods PGA Tour 12, even though I had never swung a golf club in my entire life, and got to play Augusta virtually and see what the Masters were all about. I even played sports games by more indie developers like PES and Backbreaker, and got to see physics in action. I was open to trying any and everything, but it was almost always a really great experience. This period was absolutely the pinnacle of sports gaming. And I'd argue that these 5 years in this era stack up against any 5 years of sports gaming of all time. What really stood out about this age was that it was rife with innovation and choice that gave us gamers the best of both worlds. Whether you were looking for a simulation experience and something hardcore, or something fun, laid back, and more arcade style, the choices were abound. And it gave us all exactly what we were looking for. Now, as 2016 came around, things started to look a little different. Now, of course, there were still some great games around. Namely, for me, NBA 2K17 is arguably the greatest game of the entire 2K series. With some of the best gameplay in the history of the game, and some of the most creative innovations in the entire series. You gotta love how 2K17 shook things up. I mean, consider the My Career mode, which introduced a 2-man combination with orange juice. The real 2K heads know what I'm talking about. And this was unique because the developers weren't scared to take a risk, to try something that had never been done, and something that was truly new for its series. And ultimately, the goal was to benefit the players and give us a great experience. This was a time where the game was constantly held in high regard, and for the gaming community, the 2K17 upgrade was in alignment with the series' continual ascent over time. For many, as we look back, this game was the apex of the series, and sadly, we'd only go downhill from there. But this perspective really wasn't limited to 2K. I mean, take a look across the sports gaming landscape for this era. It was much different from the days before. Previous generations were filled with choice, options, and a wide variety of experiences available for all types of gamers. Like, check this out. Consider basketball. As a kid, I remember sitting around a TV at summer camp and playing NBA Street tournaments on the PS2. In 2011, if you wanted to play a basketball video game on a major console, you could choose from NBA Live, NCAA Basketball, NBA Unrivaled, Inside the NBA, NBA 2K11, an NBA Jam remake, And then by 2017, your only options were NBA 2K17 and NBA Playgrounds. Just different. And the effects of this option shirk lasted even outside of the basketball gaming complex. Legendary series like NFL 2K, MVP Baseball, and NCAA football were all gone at this point. As franchises like Madden, NBA 2K, and FIFA began to dominate the market for their sports, we would see their profit share go up continuously year after year after year, while the quality, creativity, and fan enjoyment would only go down, down, down. So, what happened? A generation later, and sports video games have officially gotten weird. The days of unique gameplay innovation and developer passion projects feel like a long time ago. Just ask any sports gamer and they'll say undeniably and unequivocally that the quality of sports games have decreased over time significantly. But how could this be the case? While franchises like Grand Theft Auto, Mario, and Mortal Kombat have only gotten more innovative, more unique, and taken the series to higher and higher heights over the decades of innovation, the vast majority of our sports games and sports series have declined to abysmal lows in recent times. Most fans of these games point to the ultimate evil of microtransactions as the culprit for these declines. And it makes sense. As sad as it is, I think there's some validity to it. Many of these major game developers have traded in the love of the details and gameplay innovation for recycling of the same product, with a couple of new features here and there, which were actually the old features removed from the previous games for no real reason. And YouTubers like Ryan Moody and Soft Drink TV have spoken at length on the ways that franchises like Madden have taken steps back as their competition has waned. I'll never forget when they decided to remove referees from the game in an effort to add more details to Ultimate Team. When you're the only business in town, you can kind of do whatever you want to do. The game endlessly promotes their Ultimate Team bundles, packages, and loot boxes to bring in extra spending on top of the full price game at $70 these days. But Madden isn't the only perpetrator of these crimes against gamers. Remember how we talked about FIFA starting the Ultimate Team trend back in the early 2010s? Well, today, pay-for-play has become the model for EA Sports across the board. Reports have shown that in 2011, the feature generated over $100 million for EA. By 2015, it touched $800 million per year. Now in 2023, EA has reported that microtransactions have reached a peak of nearly $4.3 billion in revenue annually, with FIFA Ultimate Team being the source of almost half of that revenue. The data is clear, and the writing is on the wall. These developers aren't quite in the business of making the best game with the most details and features to bring fan enjoyment. Instead, these businesses are much more like a casino, trying to extract and drain as much money from every consumer as possible. Economics 101. Long gone are the days where it was fun to hop on 2K and grind your My Player and develop and put in the time and effort to have the best player you can, hoping to gain VC through games or a triple-double or maybe a game-winning shot to hopefully upgrade your jump shot or your post or your dunking ability. Now the entire game of NBA 2K is centered around buying and spending VC with real US currency. And not just to enjoy the game, but to ride scooters and mopeds around the virtual city. Bro, what does this have to do with the game at all? I digress. The game is cooked. And for us sports gamers, our love might be gone forever. Now, we all know the one thing that we could do to try to fix the game is to simply just not buy it. Me personally, I was as big a fan of Madden as you've ever met, from 03 with Marshall Faulk on the cover, all the way until the OBJ era. But it's been almost a decade since I personally bought a Madden game. And the same holds true for NBA 2K. But many of us love the sports and the nostalgia attached to it too much to let it go. My heart breaks to have fallen out of love with my first love, sports video games. But I hope for a future where one day we could be reunited. And if it's done right, I know it'll feel so good. Until next time, peace.